What would you say you do here?
Okay. Good morning. Let's see. We're here. We had some technical difficulties, so I think we've got those sorted out. And now my microphone's being weird. So, had a real good experience. Had a fun time. Josh Zolan, Blue is the New White. He's got the book and the podcast. I just got the book, and I'm very excited to read it. It's his experiences in building a career and a company in the skilled trades, and kind of that idea, the best path to success no one told you about until now. Raising awareness of opportunities in the skilled trades, that the only path to success is not college and amassing debt. Not to say that that's not a good path for a lot of people, but there are other opportunities. And then, so I was on Josh's podcast. That'll be coming out shortly. And then I also had the opportunity to be on the Business Bookshelf podcast with Lance Pepler. And one of his guests was Zoe, I think I'm saying this right, Roth. But she has a book, People Stuff, and definitely something that, we're always trying to explore. The People Stuff is, there it goes. The Beyond Personality Problems, an Advanced Handbook for Leadership. So I heard her episode with Lance Pepler, and I'm excited to dig into this. It sounds like a lot of her concepts complement another book you all might be familiar with, Be Intentional Culture. So we're booking out. We got lots and lots of books here. So, get your hands on some reading material. Hug your books, #hug your books. And, but excited. I've got I made a post earlier this week about Benjamin Riccardi's book, The No BS Guide to Digital Marketing. So there's so many great resources out there for you to get your hands on. And I don't know about you all, but I do prefer to read books, like a physical copy of a book. And so, anyways, enough about books. Let's talk about real people, real world. Our next guest popped up in my feed. He was cooking something that looked delicious and intriguing. So let's bring Ryan in. Good morning, sir.
Hey, John, what's happening, man? Thanks for having me on. Looking forward to hanging out a little bit.
You're in Raleigh, North Carolina. Is that correct?
Fayetteville, about an hour south of Raleigh.
About an hour south of Raleigh. Okay. So we had interacted some on LinkedIn, and then I saw your post where it looked like you had a gator wrapped in bacon. Is that correct?
Yeah. We did a little wrapping. Found some recipes. First time we ever did it. Kind of came up an impromptu thing, and my dad was the cook on it, and he found some guys on YouTube and kind of modified his recipe.
Very cool. Well, it looked like a nice big grill. So are gators prevalent in North Carolina?
No, not really. Okay. I mean, they here and there, certain places, little pockets, but it's not like a Louisiana, everyday backyard cooking.
Well, that's awesome, man. So how did it turn out?
It was great. It was really shocking, how good it was. I guess, everybody tries to put a flavor to something new, and it's very some of the meats was similar to like a chicken. Some of it was kind of a blend of chicken and pork, but I think the most out of all of the flavor and how good it tastes it was pretty fun just having a gator laid out on the grill.
Yeah.
And, sort of a centerpiece of the topic of some time to get together with the guys.
Well, that's I think that's I think I posted that on LinkedIn. Is thinking just it screams hey, this is just what we do, and try something new. And that's it definitely it doesn't take much, right, to take it up over the top, right? Just a little bit of intention and maybe, hey, let's try something new. I know so we were in Oregon before, and out in Bend there's a place called Bangers and Brew. And they have sausages where they combine two different kind of obscure meats in the sausages. And one of them was alligator. So we were talking, like, trying to remember if it had a distinct taste or not. But that's awesome, man. So is that so tell me a little bit about that. Is that something you guys normally do, having barbecues and those kinds of things? What have you experienced as that bringing your team together?
Yeah, it's something that we've tried to keep implemented and incorporated out through the year. We probably do it 3 to 4 times a year. Nice. And then like most places, get together around Christmas at a nice restaurant. But it's a way that we just kind of get away from work, and we can celebrate the wins, the hard work, and everybody's hustle, and then just kind of interact with each other and get to know each other a little better. Sometimes we'll invite our other contractors that work with us on the repairs, and they'll come out. So that we did one back in November. We did a big pig roast, and we did pig and chicken, and it's a lot of fun. The planning's fun, and then leading up to the big event, we kind of talk about it in the office, and everybody gets sort of pumped up, looking for that day where everybody cuts off a little early, and we just spend some time together, and it just kind of brings everybody back together, and just get outside, get away from work for a little while, and kick back and relax.
Yeah, well, that's awesome, man. Well, what are there ever moments where you think, like, oh man, this is because some people would say, you're losing all that productivity, you're losing all that time, you're spending all that money. Is that something you wrestle with from time to time?
No, not really. You really can't. You can't put a dollar figure on what the return is going to be on having the guys and gals get together and get away and just hang out and relax, not feel the pressure of the run and go get it, and then also just kind of we carry every day the stresses of our clients dealing with property damage. And it's just a good time to create an environment where they can just kind of let go, and we can all hang out. So you just, it's 3 or 4 hours. You can't put a value on the rejuvenation of their energy and their buy-in that you're going to get. Even probably 3 months down the road until the next grilling's scheduled. So just never even a thought, really. The cost that goes into it, and the labor cost that they're hanging out eating, just never really a thought.
That's good, man. So what's been the favorite, and then how are you going to top the gator?
Pork's a big thing here in North Carolina, so that's pretty a big common. And you throw in some chicken. Some guys don't eat. Some of the guys don't eat pork, so we'll throw chicken in. I think this spring, once the weather really turns a little warmer and we get out of the cold or wet season, we're probably going to do a steak roast, do some steaks, and then probably about mid-July we'll hit the hamburgers and hot dogs, the all-American meal, So, but you never know what'll come up. The gator came up. It was originally an oyster roast, and we were going to sit down and just knock out some oysters, and one of our managers was like, "Hey man, let's roast a gator," and we just kind of laughed. We were like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah." So where do you even get a gator? So we did some research, man, and from Louisiana they'll ship that thing in frozen and ready to go. All you got to do is prep it and throw it on the grill. So who knows what'll come up, man? I don't know. I saw one that had they had a snake in the mouth. We did chicken in the mouth of our gator.
Yeah.
So I don't know. There may be a snake come up on one of these grills we do. So I thought that would be pretty neat to try some snake. I don't know. Never tried it, but I'm always open to something new.
Yeah, that was probably in my mind, is like maybe snake or something. I don't know how you top it. So, well, good on you, man. That's very cool. I think, not to plug our book, but to plug our book, that's just little things, right? Little things kind of take it up over the top. And sometimes, like you said, it's even just reminding yourself, like, you're still a person, you're working with people, do people stuff, right? So, awesome, man. Well, thank you so much for cutting out some time for us, and looking forward to an invite to the next barbecue. So
yeah, sounds good, John. It's been great. Thanks for having me on. Enjoying the stuff. Been watching your podcast. Got the books, and looking forward to digging in. Thanks again. We'll
awesome.
Talk to you soon. Take care.
Sounds good. Thank you, sir.
Later. Bye.
Well, that's fun. Pretty wild. Yeah. I don't need to dissect it anymore, but yeah, the idea of just again, so let's do the plug. We got to do that, right? Plug the things. How small things enhance or undermine your culture. That's what our next guest is going to talk about too. But just being intentional, doing something natural, right? That's the big point in the book, is that culture is who you are, what you do, it's your norms and expectations, and so doing something outside of the box helps inspire yourself and your team to do the same, right? So treat your team good and they'll treat your clients good. So let's bring in our next guest. He's not quite as far away as North Carolina, but from time to time, Seattle and Tacoma can seem like different worlds, right, David?
Yes, it sure can. Even though it's about 30 miles apart, it's two different cultures.
Yeah. Have you, I know, I think we've talked in the past, and I see the duck in the background. Have you ever tried gator?
Yes, I have. I've actually had it at a Ducks Unlimited Fun Shoot summer party. Yes. It's actually like everything that's unique. They say it tastes like chicken.
Okay.
No, it's actually very good. Gator was not bad at all. We had it in bacon wrapped, and we also had it in a little bit of a stir fry.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw the post that Ryan had on LinkedIn, but they had a gator. It was all wrapped in bacon. I think they had some chickens and stuff like that too. So
yeah, I'm sorry I missed the your previous guest. We're in the crisis management business, and as you're aware, 2 minutes before you and I were supposed to start to this, our internet throughout our entire office went down.
That's crazy.
It caused us some issues, so I am now on my mobile phone. So,
oh wow!
Again, crisis management has come to the team.
Yeah,
and we got it done. At least I'm here, right?
Yep. Got to adapt, right? Well, I think you posted in the past, like you had a nice spread of like burritos and build your own tacos and stuff like that. And
yeah,
you're a big believer in the food with the friends and family.
Yeah, food is part of our culture, and so once a quarter, I usually will do breakfast burritos or some type of burritos with our guys. The guys will bring their own different types of sauces. Cinco de Gallo, home hot sauce. So we have a competition for the hottest of the hot sauces, and then also the sweetest. So they get 2 pounds of Costco bacon for the winter. And they really look forward to it. So we're just getting ready to do that. And for me, it's a lot of fun to be able to prepare food for the people you love and work with. So it's a good time. Yeah.
Well, that was Ryan brought up even just the hamburgers and the hot dogs. And it's like, I think I learned early on, like even if and we talk about that in the book, like bringing donuts, don't skimp on them, right? Don't get the crusty ones from the grocery store. Get some nice donuts, and so same thing, get your Costco hamburgers and hot dogs, not the cheapies, right?
Correct. So years ago, we used to have a lumber store called Lumberman's in Gig Harbor, where I had my Serpro, and that's where we did all our trading. That's where we went and got all the materials, et cetera, et cetera. So then we were all happy. Home Depot was opening up on Morgan Hill in Gig Harbor, and they had their contractor appreciation day about 2 months later. So we show up, and I couldn't believe it. They took their donuts and they cut them in quarters. And that's out.
Yeah.
Scratched my head on that one. So
yeah,
we still traded with Lumbermans, but you know, it's yeah. I mean, if you're gonna give people's donuts, give them whole good donuts.
yeah, the nice ones. So, well, so I wanted to jump into. I always like to point people to. I got the GMS. I know we're in the exclusive GMS Podcast Club together. I was episode 5. You were episode 32. So
there's my hat.
There you go.
Yep.
It's a really nice hat.
It is.
So that was, you were on 32 with Gerrett, and you talk a lot about how you got into the industry and working with your dad. So I don't want to go necessarily rehash that. I'd like to encourage people to listen to that. But I did want to touch on, so your dad made you start from the bottom, right? When you came back to work.
Yeah. So I had a son on the way, and lost my job as a union meat cutter due to non-unionization of the beef industry. And so I said, Dad, I need to work. And he said, son, well, that's great, but you can start on the bottom. So
Yep.
And I respected that. So I started on the drywall and painting truck, and soon realized that I hated drywall, but I actually liked painting. So that was the good aspect. And I actually still enjoy painting today. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and so, fast forward a couple of years, you took over the business for your dad, correct? There came a point. So what about, because I think that's a unique point in a business. There's a lot of family businesses, right? So what did you guys learn about that transfer of power? And then I guess I was interested too, you always, the young guys or the sons, or daughters that are taking over, you think you know it all, right? And then you get in the seat and you're like, oh, okay, so there's definitely things I didn't know. So can you talk about that transfer of power, and then also understanding, hey, maybe I didn't know everything I thought I knew?
Sure. So my dad came to me in 1991, and he told me I could either work for somebody else and buy the business, because he wanted to pursue his volunteer work in Rotary. And my dad traveled the entire world for Rotary and was part of one of the directors of Rotary, one of 32 leaders. So he told me, I said, son, when Dad would say son, I knew it was a teaching moment and I better listen. So I said, yeah, Dad. He says, you can either buy the business or work for somebody else. So my mom and dad gave us the opportunity in 1991 to purchase the business. Wow. And because I was such an integral part of the business, I knew its strengths and weaknesses, and I knew what I had to do the first year. I knew I had to grow it. And that understanding came from when I was in Oklahoma living. I had some good friends, their parents owned businesses. And I often said to myself, man, if my parents ever owned a business and I had the opportunity, I would work for them. I would understand the strengths and weaknesses, and then I would carry on its tradition. So when Dad said, you got these two choices, of course I jumped on it and took over some debt. And that was 1991. And we opened the doors with a $22,000 a month break even with $900 in the bank, operating capital.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So needless to say, that led to this.
Yeah. Quickly,
But, we made it because I knew the strength and the weakness. I cut out some stuff that was less profitable. I grew in other areas, and I knew if we didn't grow, we would die. So we focused heavy on growth. And I think we were doing about 350,000. And the next year we had a little bit of dip, but from 1991 to 2005, when I owned the franchise, we grew every single year. So it was very important for me to try to do 13 months worth of work in 12 months. So you always try to do that extra work to grow your business, because I liken growing a business like kicking a soccer ball up Mount Everest. It may take you 3,000 kicks to get to the top of the hill. But if you miss it, kick 2,750, the ball goes all the way down to the bottom. Yeah. So you got to start your 3,000 kicks again. So growth is critical. Every year, growth is critical. Yeah. And I've been blessed ever since. So Dad gave me a wonderful opportunity, and I've jumped on it, and I understood that those don't come along very often.
Yeah. Well, okay. So I was looking at your bio, and I believe I have the dates right, but in 88, you acquired your CE accreditation so that you guys could start offering continuing education credits.
Yes.
So this is still, and I think some people may miss this. Like today, it's a no-brainer to get a CERPRO, right? I mean, it's expensive, but you know what you're buying into. In the 90s, in the 80s in particular, it's still a new concept, right? This franchising thing, this property restoration thing, we're still transitioning from carpet cleaning to what it is today. So what's, I would imagine you guys were kind of on the early side of that CE accreditation. So what do modern restorers need to understand about the evolution of internal training and also utilizing that for, marketing and outreach?
Well, I think it's important for any restoration vendor to become an expert within their community. So the only way to really do that is to get in front of your peers, your centers of influence, whether you're doing commercial, residential property management, insurance, insurance, non-insurance type work. You've got to be known as the go-to person. And the only way to really do that is to build your credit within the community.
Yeah.
So in 1988, when we got into doing CE classes, we had to do that. CERPRO was known as a residential cleaning service. When you went to CERPRO's training originally, you went there with 750 addresses of homes and buildings to market carpet cleaning.
Okay.
So when CERPRO started dabbling, some of the other offices in CERPRO started dabbling in insurance work and convincing us it was profitable and it was worth it, then corporate kind of bought into that. So we hit the market with your average CERPROs back then probably had about 3,200 to 3,500 carpet cleaning clients.
Wow.
So we would go back and cross market. That's when I learned the value of cross marketing your services. We cross marketed our services to the homeowners, to the insurance agents, and the retailers.
Upstream, right?
Upstream. And that's when we started hearing from the agents this word called CE.
Yeah.
So we started doing CE back then when you'd use the old overhead screen with the clear, what was that called? Yeah.
Yep.
It took two of you, one guy to change it while the other guy talked. So,
I just think I would like to pause. Like it's ubiquitous now, right? That's a concept that's kind of across the board. But if you backtrack to 88, I mean, were you guys, from your knowledge, one of the only ones doing it, or?
No, we had a little bit of competition from ServiceMaster.
Sure.
So ServiceMaster had what we called the Big Four then, and they had twice as many marketers as we did.
Oh, geez.
I think
in your local market even.
Yeah, not so much in our local. Yes, because you had the ServiceMaster at Tacoma. So the only way we could really start combating their footprint in the insurance industry, it was hard to go after the adjusters. It was easier to go after the agents. So that's what we did. So we tried to increase our message because we were more of a community-based franchises. They had their bigger stores. We had our smaller mom and pop stores, which is a strength and a weakness.
Yeah.
But we had a strong community recognition and base. We were known at the grocery store. We were known on the Little League fields, and we were known at church. Yeah. So that gave us that instant credibility, which then allowed us to leapfrog into the insurance repair work.
Yeah.
And then we found out that yes, that is a good line of work. So CE was instrumental in that. And then so the CE online training kind of started to get out when I sold out. Yeah. But I'm a huge believer in continuing education across the board and being that expert in the community.
And there's still a lot of agents that prefer to take a in-person class and the networking and that kind of stuff. But that, I mean, at the core of that is figure out who your clients are. It was funny. We were just having a conversation. I know you have some experience too, or a lot of experience with the program work. And someone was asking how they expand. How do you get more work? And it's like contractors that are on program work and just expect that to be their only source. That's a bad way to go about business. I was talking to this person who was saying, find out who the local agents are that sell, the carrier that you have the best experience with, and try to, like you said, upstream the relationship, figure out, who do you know, expand that circle. And so, the principle still applies. It maybe there's more opportunities, but more competition as well. But what do your clients need that you can fill a void, right?
Well, that's the biggest thing, John, is listening to what your clients' needs are. If you go in and you start talking about everything you can do, you may find out that that's nothing they need.
Yeah.
So, you go in and you introduce yourself, and hi, I'm Dave Olson with 1-800-Water Damage. I'm here to find out what your needs are. What can I do for you, and such. And anybody that has a single revenue business is in trouble. And that's one thing that ServPro taught us heavy back in the 80s, is never have more than 30% of your work in one market. So, if you're heavy in program work, I kind of call that the welfare check, that program work is going to feed you a certain amount of work that allows you to pay your bills. That maybe it's not as profitable, maybe it's got more headaches, but it's diversification in your income. So if you've got program work, if you've got insurance work, insurance-based we work, non-program, and if you've got property management type work, you can weather the storm better than the one guy that has 90% of their work in program or 90% in property management. So you got to be balanced in your revenue stream.
Yep. And tool for each, right? Because there's different needs in each. So in 2000, so we fast forward a little bit. In 2000, so you worked for your dad, worked your way up, took over the business, and then in 2000, you became a state director. Is this part of? I guess this is. So you and I have talked. 2002, I started with a service master. So ServPro was the bad guys, right? And and so in 2000, when you became a state director, is that at all associated, or is this kind of when ServPro was ramping up their national response teams?
Yeah, and when I got into ServPro in 1981, they were $80 million company. And about 2000, our goal was $1 billion. No, 2010, our goal was $1 billion. So yes, we were starting to ramp up national accounts. We were looking at building our national account center. I was frankly starting to get a little bit bored with the franchise. I needed more. In order to become a master license holder, independent master license holder for ServPro Industries, you had to run a model franchise. So in 2000, I was approached to buy the directorship. That was the training and development rights to the whole state. So we kind of, looked at that as a stepping platform for me professionally. And at that time, my ex-wife, Debbie, we're divorced because we became better life partner or better business partners than life partners. So any of you guys that work with your spouse, remember to date them. That's very important that you date your spouse, that's your coworker. So anyway, we made this national push, and so we adopted a lot of the growth policies that we had in our ServPro Gig Harbor, North Tacoma, Mason County. I had 2 licenses into the directorship. So we started growing the state with one common message. Our competitors were you guys in yellow. So, if you think about it, John, every day there's only so much work out there. There's only going to be so much. So how do we get more work? Well, we have to do a better job than our competitors. At that time, we were service master. So we increased our sales reps in the field. We also adopted, and I had little buttons made that had SM with the stop, the little circle with the line through it.
Oh, okay.
I gave those out to all our franchise owners, and we had a statement was called Beat Service Master. So we went to the marketplace,
make it a competition
professionally. Found out how you take your competitors and take work from them is you market to you find out what their weakness is and you market to your strength. You don't have to go out and say bad things. You find out and you market your strength.
Yep.
I always tell people what you do right, not what people do wrong.
Right. Yeah, that's a key. Yeah, it doesn't make you look good, and it's not good for the community as a whole, right? So
yeah, so we continue to follow the bouncing ball that Serpro provided us, and I'm doing that now at 1-800 water damage. I'm following the bouncing ball of the franchise system, and we're growing it.
Yeah. Well, and so we talked about you guys were doing the CE credits, and then and I'm bouncing around a little bit now. So you were with Serpro, then you were with the Puro Clean systems, and then now with 1-800 water damage, which is part of the Belfour system.
Right.
What are your thoughts over the years on the role of certification and training for the industry? And then how does a person in a position of leadership, whether you're a small business owner or, on a much larger scale, maximize the efficacy of, those resources?
Well, nobody's born a restorer, right? Nobody comes out and is actually has restorer or salesman. So we got to go to our professional alliances. And as you can see, I've actually got IICRC master company up there. So
yeah,
we have organizations like that. We subscribe to organizations like that. We Restoration Newsline and all the other ones. So we try to harvest. I've always tried to harvest information that's out there to make us better. Most of us here, we pay for our employees to all be IICRC certified. I hate to let that out there because a lot of times your employees now, people will approach you and try to take them. But if you've got a great place to work, that usually doesn't happen. So, accreditation within the industry, within your peers like you and I, meeting Gerrett and working with other people within the industry, there's a protection there too. There is, if I hear something that can be negatively impacted on your company, I'm going to let you know. Not that happens. If there's something negatively impacted on another restoration company that I know and trust, I'm going to let them know, hoping that we have the same courtesy coming back. So I'm a huge believer in, organizational structures and other learning resources within our industry.
Yeah. Well, and that, there's sometimes, I think I've said it before, I'm grateful. I think I worked probably a good 3 to 6 months before I went to my first AMRT, WRT. And that really, I think that really helped kind of make the class a lot more practical, because now you have some experience behind you. You've learned from your fellow employees and those kinds of things. And then now you're saying, okay, now I know a little bit more of the science behind it, as opposed to, I just got hired. They sent me to the class. Most of the time, in my experience, those guys, when they come back, guys and gals, they're just, they're pretty high on the horse, right? They think they know, like a college kid entering the workforce, they think they know it all. And, as opposed to having kind of both sides of it.
Well, look at the people on the other side of the fence. You and I know what fence that is, that go to take these trainings, and all of a sudden they're experts and they know how we should build.
Yeah. Yep.
So, and there again, that takes understanding and communication, and not argument, to say, well, this is why we're doing this on this bill. This substantiates that, rather than argue. Let's educate. So education is the key to everything. So I'm a huge believer in that aspect. Yeah.
Well, it's funny. So I think I came across the Service Master story by Al Ayresman, and he talks about, that whole book is about the tension between people and profit, and the first 5 CEOs and leaders within Service Master, and talking about some of the fundamental principles that kind of changed, or they got away from in the late 90s, early 2000s. So it was really interesting, because my limited experience, right? When I was with Service Master, they were kind of king of the hill at the time. And I can remember we had the contract with the largest carrier in the nation, fill in the blanks. And then, Serpro and the guys in green had kind of the lesser contract. And then by the time by the time I would say, 2010, I got in with Belfour. Serpro had far surpassed. It was kind of Serpro and Belfour. They're kind of two different trajectories. I mean, Serpro had really built up the franchise side, right, and obviously Belfour was dabbling in that with ducks and those kinds of things. But sorry, I want to remember what my question was. What do you recall of the strategy? Okay, yeah, because I think around 2010 you started seeing Serpro on ESPN and those kinds of things. And I think that's kind of when you were coming out. But they came out with the app and became. I think nowadays it's easy to explain. What do you guys do? Well, it's like what Serpro does, but better, or that might be the cue. Do you remember some of those? I've talked to a lot of Serpro owners that said for many, many years it didn't quite make sense, and then all of a sudden it clicked, and now the investment and being part of the franchise really made sense. Do you remember some of those as you were director and the build-up?
Oh yeah, when we really started to click, the national advertising fund through royalties, and also the amount of ads, it's like compounding interest. It's huge. Every year it just grows and grows and grows. And I remember when Serpro hired the Bunting Group, and the Bunting Group is the one that came up with like it never even happened.
Yeah.
All of us franchise owners at that time would say, holy cow, how do we live up to that? How do we make it like it never even happened? Well, you do it through experience.
Yeah.
So once the National Advertising Fund and advertising started to come in, it changed everything for us. In fact, that allowed me an easier time to selling new franchises. Before that, I had to try to convince people who Serpro was and what we were about. But when they started hearing us on the radio, the TV, oh, Serpro, I know Serpro.
Yeah.
It used to be if we would do a ratings against ServiceMaster cleaned our clock up until about 1996, 97.
Yeah.
And then we started cleaning their clock just through the national advertising campaign.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a huge boost to us.
Yeah. Keep chipping away at it. Well, and so I think this is interesting as we were, talking about it over cigars and then kind of preparing for this. So the larger franchise organizations have that perception of, you're competing for zip codes. We're on the same team, right? But yet there's some competition and crossover when you're butting up to each other. But with your experience as a state director, how do you work to help? Our industry is fiercely independent, right? And so, it's our strength and our weakness. But
yes,
how do you help people see, by being a part, and I'm sure that was your challenge as state director, is that if you contribute to the bigger piece, it's actually better for you and everyone. It helps leave a legacy. It's much more sustainable. How do you communicate that? How did you do that, I guess, as state director? And then how do you see the industry doing that? Because obviously that's the bigger challenge across the board, right?
Well, as a state director, I had a little bit more control, but I had to lead through proof of example.
Yeah.
I also had to convince that this is the right way to go. So what we did, John, more than anything to really to move ahead of our competition is we created a unified message and we created one team. So as a 1-800 where we only have three of us in the state of Washington, that's a little harder to do. So I think as an industry, we have to recognize that we are a niche industry. We all have to look out for each other.
Yeah.
Don't see each other. You don't have to give away your trade secrets, but at least have a common bond that we're in the same industry and we get hurt by the same decisions that are made above. So rather than attack and destroy, what can we do to come together and figure out where our industry is and what can we do to provide a better product for our customer?
Right.
You and I talked a little bit about peer reviews. I mean, we've occasionally had companies that go out and have done a peer review on us, and the first thing they do is talk negative about who we are.
Yeah.
Versus saying, you know what, my peer review only consists of viewing the paper. I was never there from the day the technicians showed up.
Yeah.
I don't know about the interaction of the customer. I only know what you're asking me to look at, and that's static. It's on paper. It's not organic. You and I have talked about organic before within our companies. So again, I think in this industry, we need to kind of look at each other as all part of this. Maybe we're different cards of the deck, but we're all in the same deck.
Right.
Yeah. Right. And that's a little harder to do when everybody's independent.
Well, and it's, what do they say? There's a reason wherever there's a McDonald's shortly nearby, there's a Burger King, if not, directly across the street. And that's, good competition raises the bar for everybody, and is good for the industry as a whole, right? And then it's bad apples or bad actors that really make it challenging, because when that word gets out, such and such company, took advantage of their customers this way or that way, that tends to paint a broad picture. If those stories come out in the news, they're not just thinking of that company, they're thinking of all the restoration companies, right? So
exactly. I would much rather have a water damage, a fire damage go to a company that works by our industry standards than a GC that has no clue what they're doing. Yeah. They clean the house cold. They seal the house cold. Yeah. And then the next thing, the hot summer comes up and the house stinks because you opened up all the pores. Yeah. Those are some of the things that you and I've talked about before this meeting. That are we true restorers these days? Right. Or are we professional cleaners? Do we read the labels on how to apply sealants? Those are all things that sometimes I question. Yeah. Yep. Figuring that out. So we mentioned before, so you were Serpro, you've been with Puro Clean, you're now with 1-800 Water Damage. What are some of the things that, as you've moved into different systems, that have really stood out as like universal principles? And were there any that you felt didn't necessarily translate? Things that you thought, probably especially moving from Serpro to Puro Clean, right? Where it further cemented in, hey, this is a universal principle. And then some of them, was there, again, I'm saying the same thing, but was there any that you were like, oh, this doesn't necessarily translate? Well, one thing I learned at Puro, which I already knew coming from Serpro, is you got to take care of your franchise owners, and your franchise owners have to feel like there's worth within the royalty dollar. Yeah. So that's one of the things that we did under Steve White's leadership at Puro, is we started to restore value to the franchise dollar that was given to us. Yeah. That we were providing service. So that was kind of fun to watch the change of Puro. I can't divulge too much, but our role and responsibility was to get it proposed, to get it ready for sale. We thought it would take a little longer. We actually did it in about 19 months. Yeah. Turned it around, and it was sold. In fact, the previous co-owner of Belfour bought Puro. And so that was fun. I really enjoyed that. Steve was a former Army captain, great leadership, great communicator, and allowed me the freedom to do what I had to do as VP of operations, training and training development for the whole system. So that was a blast. I still use some of the stuff that Steve taught me, and I respect him. Yeah. So I think I put in a clip earlier to you. My grandpa, who I try to model my life after, he told me a long time ago, he says, Dave, you're alive when you learn something new every day. Huh. And I tried to live by that. What can I learn today to make myself and the world better? So I learned a lot from Steve in there. Yeah. Yeah. So I guess if we're going back to that collaboration piece, you brought that up. Like if you're an organization that's trying to bring people together, especially fiercely independent people, what's the value, right? What are you going after, trying to be clear about? I think that's, there's a lot of efforts in the industry to do that. There's a lot of people claiming that. And I think if you've got a room full of 100 restorers, it'd probably be a little bit of, all over the place as far as what the top priorities are. So trying to narrow in on something that we can get traction on is
is tricky, but
yeah, let me touch on that. So you take 100 restoration companies in a room, and you got franchise and you got independent. There's advantages and disadvantages to both.
Yeah.
I've seen extremely high quality independent businesses out there. They all believe in education and taking care of their employees, and they have a community value program. So you also can see that same thing in the franchise end. But so whether you're independent or your franchise, the franchise, obviously you have your map laid out, and independent, you have to find your map. But the companies that are strong and succeed have high standards, not only for themselves, but for their company.
Yeah. Take care of your employees. Yep. That's good. I mean, yeah, it's not in that regard, it's not rocket science. It's not that complicated, right? You just got to dial in. So,
well, if you think about it, who's your most important employee in your company? Your frontline guy, the guy that sees the customer every single day. So if they're not uniformed, if they can't speak the language, so say you go up to the customer and says, well, I think your floor is wet. Well, what does wet mean?
Yeah.
Well, I think your floor has an elevated moisture content level. Okay, that's language that the customer said, ooh, I don't know that language. Can you tell me more about it? Because wet is different to everybody.
Right.
So there again, professional standards, education, your frontline employees are key.
Yep. And then understanding your strategy. That's always asking our guys, well, what are you drying? Why is that equipment there? And so it's funny because a lot of people want to, say that the programs are too stringent or those kinds of things. But a lot of times, people are, there was one recently, someone was getting rejected because they didn't have a dry log, and they're like, should I share my dry log with the adjuster? And it's like, well, why wouldn't you? It should be pretty standard across the board. So,
well, here's the other thing too. If you agree to being on a program,
what's
the last thing you do before you send off that paperwork? You
Pray.
sign it. You agree. I agree to these standards. So I can understand. I can understand somebody that's not on a program, and then all of a sudden they get an email from a third party, a TPA, saying you got to cut this, and cut this.
Yeah.
So what I used to hear a lot of is in our franchise system, I used to hear franchise owners say, well, I didn't bill for this, and that, and they want me to cut this. And I says, well, that was your first mistake, is you didn't bill for this, and that.
Yeah.
So you have no room. You got to remember, what are these people called? Adjusters.
Yep.
What do they do for a living? Adjust your file.
Yep. Well, I think I had to learn that principle the hard way. We had a large commercial loss, a pretty good size. I wouldn't say large. It was a good sized commercial loss. And I thought we were dealing directly with the customer. I should have known at the threshold it was most likely going to go to third party review, from a TPC or a consultant or something like that. And so I had given the client credits, but I didn't, exactly like you're saying.
Yes.
I didn't show the credits, transparently in Xactimate. And so when the third party consultant came, they're coming to cut, right? That's what they have to do. And so because I didn't demonstrate the credits in a transparent fashion, it was just a lump sum. I didn't have a way to go back and say, okay, you're reviewing this, but you're reviewing this from zero, not from the already discounted rate. And so I think that's a key principle, is exactly like you're saying. You've got to, if you're playing the game, you got to throw all the legitimate items at the reviewer, and you can give discounts, but make sure they're transparent so that if it goes, especially on those larger ones, that you can play back from zero as opposed to discounting from a discounted position.
Exactly. Mike Bruno, the best production manager I've ever had to date, stayed at Serpro Gig Harbor. Mike used to come down very frustrated sometimes when he would talk to the payer, let's say whoever's paying the bill, and he would say, well, they want me to do this, and that. And I used to always say to Mike, I says, Mike, he says, I know. Can we do it for the bottom line?
Yeah.
So, sometimes we need to look at these, and maybe this little area here or this is lower, but overall we can do it. And I said, Mike, can we do it for the bottom line? And if we do that, the customer can't cherry pick.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we just like kind of you were saying, we can do it for this as long as we're allowed to maintain the profitable items, because face it, there's more profitable items than less profitable. Drywall is not profitable.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cabinets and other items can be a little bit more profitable.
Yep.
But can we do it for the bottom line? Can we make the customer happy? And can we move forward?
Yep. So you're back in the mix. You had a hiatus for a little while, right? Semi-retirement, and now you're back in the mix. You're managing an office in Seattle. So as an old dog, right? You've got over 40 years in the industry. Are you still learning new tricks? How are you adapting to the changes in the market and changes in the workforce and all of that?
Well, the interesting part for me is I'm 61 in 11 days. So I'm working with 5 different generations of workforce, from baby boomers down to the newest, which is what?
Gen Z?
Yeah. So there's many different complexities that I have to look at as general manager here on how I even talk to people within our workforce.
Yeah.
So things move much faster. I'm a little bit more old school.
Yeah.
So I was on the computer here at 9:30 this morning, making sure I was prepared for this today. And at the last minute, my internet crashed.
Yep.
So, but I made my way through it. So I have to recognize the different generations within the workforce, blend all of their personalities while being more computer literate and more trusting of modern technology. So that's been the biggest thing for me. But I tell you what doesn't change in 40 years of doing this is taking care of your employees. If they know you care, you can go a long ways. If you don't care, forget it.
Yeah.
So that hasn't changed. I always said, if you do these things, you grow. Answer your phones between 8 and 5, show up on time, and do what you promised to do.
Yep.
If you do those as a restoration vendor, you're going to grow your company. Those are 3 simple things to do.
Yeah.
Very simple, 3 things.
Let's state them again just to make sure they set in. So three. David Olson, 40-year veteran of the property restoration industry, multiple systems, universal principles. What are the 3 keys to success?
Answer your phones between 8 and 5. Show up on time, and do what you promised to do.
Yeah, geez.
And there's one more.
Okay.
You do this well, you'll succeed beyond your expectations. Market consistently. So the first 3 are a core. If you want to maintain, this one is the growth, the key to your growth.
Yeah.
So, but those 3 I live by.
As far as the do what you say you're going to do, are you a under promise over deliver, or what's your? I guess what I was just having this conversation with somebody. If you commit yourself to do what you say you're going to do, you're a lot more careful about what you commit to, right?
Definitely don't overpromise. If you're not sure it's going to be dry tomorrow, don't say it's going to be dry.
Yeah.
Tell the customer it's dry when it's dry. And I'm not going to name companies, but we all know who came up with the 3-day drying guarantee. It's dry when it's dry.
Yeah.
You know, cars, when they fix cars, they all kind of fix the same because they're built on an assembly line. Houses are all built out of the same component, but they're built on site. You don't have that strict control. So you don't know if that house is completely level. You don't know if there's wicking points, running points, moisture migration. You don't know all that. So it's dry when it's dry. So really my saying is do what you promise, and it's dry when it's dry. Don't overpromise, and just that's the way it is.
Well, and 2, especially I would like to say, especially if you're a program vendor and you know that the general expectations or the push from the carrier is going to be that 3-day drying, then you can ramp up, right? Okay,
Sure.
You want a 3-day drive, then I'm going to have to do this, this, and this to even get it in the ballpark of accomplishing that. So
Right.
I'm going to need a trailer for every residential loss, whatever. But,
Right.
Obviously we're being facetious, but, if that's the expectation, and I would say, not saying better than not, if you have a specialty drying situation. It's crazy how many contractors don't reach out to the adjuster, document. Hey, this is going to be over 3 days. You should know that by day 2, right? Like,
yes.
Hey, this thing's going over. I need an exception. I need the authorization to use this piece of equipment. I know Ken Larson, who was on the podcast, would say, authorization? What are you talking about?
Yeah.
They don't authorize anything. But it's true. You got to, if that's the game you're in, you have to play the game and play it well, right? And
yes, you got to let them know ahead of time. Well, John, as the adjuster, if you want us to dry it in 3 days, we can do that, but we may have to dry it from both sides.
Yep.
We may have to add heat, but we know what heat can do to the house. In some situations, it can cause additional damages if you don't have the right amount. We could probably remove that on day 1 rather than waiting.
Yep.
There are all sorts of things that we can do, but there's another thing called professional standards.
Yeah.
And that is all well documented. And this book right here usually wins in court.
Yeah.
So, know your notes. When you write the estimate, use your F9s.
Yeah. Yep. Well, and that's I think we called that. I think I wrote it in restoration as Goldilocks, the adjuster, and the 3 estimator bears. But basically was be polite, be professional, but don't get played.
Yeah. Yeah, and and here's the thing too. If an adjuster asks me to do something that's against the standard, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to say, okay, I'll put that in writing and send it to you, and you can sign.
Yep, please sign here. Yep,
sign right here. But, and most of them will say, okay, no, please go ahead and do it.
Yep. I'll close on a funny story there. When I was in Seattle, we had a large project management company that called us out to do a loss. Literally, the sewer backed up, right? And so there's floaties. Like, it's not questionable Cat 2, Cat 3. It's clearly Cat 3, right? And so the maintenance manager, we advised, hey, we need to flip cut walls. We need to disinfect. We got to rip carpet out. And he said, no, I just want you to suck it up, spray your magic juice on there, and get out. And like, listen, like, okay, you have to sign this document. You need to respond to this email, this is not safe. This is not right. And so the next day we get a call from the regional manager. Why the heck didn't you rip out drywall? There was literally poop on the floor and And it's like, no, believe me, I know that. I've got the pictures, but here's the text, the email, and the form that your on-site manager signed, saying they didn't want us to do that. And they said, hang on a second. And so about 2 minutes later, we get a call. Hey, could you guys come over and do some fun cuts? So, but from that point forward, working for that company, we could say, so-and-so, your regional manager said this is the standard we want to follow.
Right.
And I think you can't use that as a blanket or abuse that, but you now know what the expectations are of that company, right? So
yeah, I've got a quick story. I know you're running out of time, but about 1989 or so, we're working at Keyport subbase or torpedo yard up there in Keyport, Washington. So they're opening up this huge, brand new computer lab. And those bathrooms hadn't been really professionally cleaned in years. They still had the blackout paint on the windows from World War II. So we get tasked to go up there and clean these tile floors and make the grout look like brand new. Okay. We tried everything we could within the Serpro product line, and that's a ton of product. Yeah. So nothing worked. So the supervisors kept coming by, and they got all these acronyms on their hats. I have no idea what they mean. They're hard hats. Well, we want you to use muriatic acid. You need to use muriatic acid. Well, I knew that you couldn't use muriatic acid because it took copious amounts of water to rinse it. Yeah. So finally, they kept bugging us. I said, I'll tell you what, you sign a release
Yeah.
And we will do it. So we put on all of our back then PPE.
Yep.
And we had no idea that there was a wind current in that building.
Oh no.
So all of a sudden this muriatic acid fume starts wafting through the blueprint division at the building we were working in.
Jeez.
So we got the windows open. I look outside to see what's going on, and there's like 150 people outside.
Ugh.
I open up the door to look into this wing. There's nobody in there. All the blueprints are laid out. And I said, "Oh, this is not going to be good." So all of a sudden, all these guys, not only with these acronyms, they got all sorts of different colored hats. They want to point the finger at us. They're gonna take us to the cleaners.
You're over. Yeah.
Here's my and I was released to use this. That's the only thing that saved our bacon was that release.
Yeah. Yep. Getting in writing, and even then it's no fail safe, but it's definitely better than, right? So
yeah.
Well, David, I'm so glad that you're local, and we'll have opportunities to talk many more times. But thank you for sharing a bit of your experience with our thousands and thousands of listeners. And any closing thoughts for 2021?
Oh, I've got a lot of thoughts, but I'm really hoping that we can get back to some form of normalcy in our area. You know, the difficulties here, not only here, but also the difficulties in our nation. So obviously these times of COVID has presented a lot of problems to us. And I'm looking forward to, it's always funny if you ask a restoration contractor, John, what's normal?
Yeah.
Normal depends on the situation where you are, right?
Yep.
So I really hope that things can get back to normal sooner than later.
Yeah. Yep.
So that's my wish.
Awesome, David. Well, thank you so much for taking the time and for persevering through the technical difficulties. So,
I like old outlaw Josie Wells. I will endeavor to persevere.
Very good.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you, David.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Well, there we go. Another DYOJO podcast. DYOJO Podcast in the bag. So, man, that's you can teach a new dog old tricks and an old dog new tricks. But I think the piece of that is really interesting. Like David was talking about, we were sitting around with Luke Drager from Aramco, talking about the history and collaboration. It was interesting for me because David was at Serpro in the Northwest at a time when I was at Service Master down in California. And it's just interesting how within a short period of time, the landscape changed. It's always changing. And so, but that as I was thinking about it and preparing for this, that idea, of being a state director, helping people in a region that are independent, have gone into business for themselves, see being a part of something bigger is good for them. What is the saying that don't let short-term objectives undermine long-term vision and goals. And so I honestly don't know what that 100% looks like for our industry. Like you said, if you're trying to be a part of that, then what value are you bringing? And that could be different for everybody. But they're at minute 52. If you missed it, David shares his 3 with a bonus of his 3 steps to maintaining growth, and then that final kicker for advancing your growth. And so that's definitely a really good takeaway. So I know David is he mentioned it several times, proponent of culture. So just want to give a nice plug. This allows us to do what we do, the Be Intentional culture, how the small things enhance or undermine your culture. It's not, many of our contributors are from property restoration and the insurance industry at large, but it's a broader topic than that. So if you get a chance, take a peek, leave a review, even if you felt like it was a crappy book and you didn't like it at all. But if you would check it out, and reach out to the co-authors, our talented co-authors. Their information is in the book. And we will see you next time. What do we got coming up? Mark Springer's coming to talk about mergers and acquisitions, which is definitely timely, especially given that Dayspring has partnered with Trinity Hunt. And obviously lots and lots of mergers and acquisitions across the board. And then we'll be talking after that with Ed Cross about standards within the industry, the development of the standards, and questions about the AOB, assignment of benefits, which is a hot topic. So, and we've got on the Ed Cross episode, there will be a special guest, something I've been working on for quite some time. And because I am, quote, a persistent bastard, we finally got it. We got the deal inked. So I'm excited about that. Have a good day. Keep doing good things. Take us out.
This is the stupidest thing I've ever heard.